Go ahead.
I like. Let's go to Roy. Hacksaw, I told you in your last podcast, our pitching is suspect, but our lineup is World Series worthy. I also mentioned our pitching had suspect all season, yet we have the best record in MLB. Just saying.
That must be Dodger fan.
Yeah.
Dodger fan Roy. Identify who you're making reference to. Because hell, you might be making reference to the White Sox. You might be drunk. I don't know. No, the Dodgers. The Dodgers roster is phenomenal. And the unique thing is the top of the batting order is exceptional. The bottom of the batting order has been kind of spotty all season. But the Dodgers' depth has come back. Chris Taylor has come back. Kike Hernandez has come back. Tommy Edman has turned out to be a hell of an acquisition. Michael Kopech, who's a throw-in on the White Sox deal, has become their closer. The Dodgers are a really, really good team. But you have to tell me, after you give the ball to Jack Flaherty in your first playoff game, who are you going to trust in the second game? Is it Yosh Yamamoto, who has to prove he can throw more than 4 innings and throw 4 quality innings if he's limited coming off the shoulder issue? Where else is Dodger pitching going to come from? To me, it's a huge, huge issue. I mean, if you have to, I'm a huge Walker Buehler fan, but you watch him, he is not the pitcher he was prior to the second surgery. And Kershaw is going back into the bullpen, and he's going to try to throw. He's going to probably throw relief in the postseason. If he can give him 1 inning with the bone spur on the toe, he's going to try to do that. But, I mean, to me, the Dodgers are just so wafer thin. And as John said on Monday, Lee, please don't tell me that we're going to be talking about bullpen days in the playoffs for the Dodgers. They got issues. And, I did all that research. I mean, all those pitchers on the disabled list on surgery just is staggering. They're good. Do they survive the first round of the playoffs when their series, they'll play somebody coming out of the wild card round? Can even survive that unless they're going to outscore everybody 11-8.
In the Padre game when Buehler pitched, he was erratic. He wasn't like the old Buehler, but he kind of figured things out, and he actually pitched relatively well.
5 innings, 1 run allowed, but the guy's on base all night.
Yeah, but still 1 run allowed. So, Padre fans are like, oh, great. Buehler is finally getting his shit together when he plays the Padres. But yeah, it's kind of nuts. And when you get into the playoffs, the intensity and all of the pressure and the media, and what are you going to do? Roll out Landon Knack like a rookie and expect him to win a ring for the Dodgers? I just don't see it happening.
And lost in your critique is the reality is you're not playing the Rockies or the Marlins or the Pirates or the White Sox.
Right.
Hey, Roy, thanks for being with us. I hope you'll tell your friends about what you're doing with this podcast. Next one, John.
Okay, let's go here to Petey. And he says, is Schulte still experimenting in his bullpen roles? Looks like he lost the Midas touch lately.
Well, they got a problem with Suarez. Is Suarez trustworthy? Understand Suarez gave up 3 straight hits before Machado turned that ground ball into a triple play in that victory on Monday night. Mm-hmm. So that, to me, Suarez has had 4 shaky, bad outings in his last 7 appearances. That wasn't a good appearance. That goes up as a negative in the column. I have said this multiple times, Petey, that I'm concerned about the overuse of Tanner Scott and how they use Jason Adam. Scott got lit in the Dodger game on Thursday, and I'm just concerned about a fatigue situation there. So as they go to this final weekend with Arizona, they've got to settle this bullpen down, and I just don't think you can go to Suarez back-to-back nights and trust that he's going to be Suarez because he hasn't been Suarez for weeks.
Yeah, I'm perplexed by that. It almost feels like we need to re-engineer Suarez, but you can't do that at this time of the year. Yeah. But who's looked good in the bullpen is Estrada. I mean, Estrada is getting guys out, and they've been pitching him mostly like 6th inning-ish. So maybe, some of those roles need to be adjusted. It was weird seeing Tanner Scott give up all those hits, but I think the defined role for each of these guys, it needs to be fluid. You can't have it as Adam in the 7th, Tanner Scott in the 8th, and Suarez in the 9th. I think you have to mix it up based on who's up,
especially back-to-back nights.
That too. But that means the other guys in the bullpen need to perform. Hoeing and Yuki Matsui and Adrian Morejon, they've got to be able to come in and shut it down as well.
So, I mean, the Padres have phenomenal starting pitching. Here's a stat for you. As they get ready to go into Arizona, the starting rotation since mid-September, 2.28 ERA. There's nobody in baseball that's got that type of collective ERA from your starters. So now
That's
the
insane.
starters are going to have to be stretched out. We can't have any 4-inning starts in postseason play either. So, but you're correct, Petey. They've got to figure out who's going to be trustworthy coming out of the pen. And that seems weird for a team that's won 91 games this season to say that there's a problem. But just like the problem at Dodger Stadium, who the hell are you going to trust after you give the ball to Jack Flaherty?
I'd rather have the Padre problem than the Dodger problem, at least when it comes to pitching.
Next one.
Okay, this is kind of a strange one here. This is from Noodles. He says, not a lot of energy from the Padres dugout last night. I'm a little suspicious.
Oh, I think they partied hardy. And let's also understand the season is a brutal grind. I mean, they are sitting there at, heading to game 160, and they just want to get to the finish line. They want to get an off day on Monday. They really need an off day. But, guys get perked up. You go in the clubhouse, I've been down there. You go in the clubhouse in postseason, it's a different environment. You talk about an adrenaline rush. It's like catching your breath and, I'm ready. So, they're not quite the same team. Noodles. Is that nickname like Hacksaw, or is that given name on driver's license?
That's the assistant coach for Nevada Reno's basketball team, I think. Remember him? Did you see the interview or the podcast episode of Mookie and Fernando?
Yes.
The day after the triple play, and they're buddies and they trust and respect each other off the field, but between the lines, they're going to go at it, tooth and nail. And I thought that was a really cool, conversation.
I think there's a lot of mutual respect a lot of places. And I drive this home. I don't know if you saw what I posted on X a month ago when we went through the trauma of what was happening to Freddie Freeman's family. They just posted a video, might have been Wednesday, maybe it was Tuesday, of Freddie Freeman's young son, Max, running across the living room, running. This was the kid that was totally paralyzed.
Wow.
His body was shutting down. I asked for prayers. Major league players asked for prayers on social media. And to see that kid running from this chair to that chair to sit with his mother, how cool was that? So my point being, there is a camaraderie. You talk Betts, Fernando. There's a camaraderie players, whether they're the enemy at 7:05 p.m. first pitch, or they're best friends when they're away from the yard. There's a uniqueness. So, but the Freddie Freeman story, I saw it. It must have been late night. Maybe it was Tuesday, Wednesday. I looked, I said, holy cow, almost brought tears to my eyes. I said, that's Freddie Freeman's kid that was paralyzed. Holy mackerel.
The miracles of innovative medical science. And, 20, 30 years ago, he may not have survived,
exactly.
And so this is awesome. I will say this, though, as a fan, I remember when I first learned that the players on opposing teams were friends off the field. I was like, no, that can't be right. They need to be enemies, just like I don't like the Dodger fans and everything else. But, it's a fraternity. It's a select group of elite athletes. So clearly they're going to have respect for one another.
The only exception to the rule might be Pascual Perez, who threw beanballs that triggered the worst brawl I ever saw between the Padres and the Atlanta Braves. He might be the only one that doesn't have any friends.
I remember that. Yeah, Champ Summers played a role in that fight.
On we go. Next one.
Okay, let's go to Javi. He goes, Hacksaw, I told you they would take 2 out of 3. Dodgers proved they got a better bullpen and offense.
Well, the Dodger bullpen, sometimes, Javi, you do have to hold your breath because you never know. It's like Tom Hanks. You never know what you're going to get in a box of candy, right? So you never know what you're going to get from Blake Trinan or Evan Phillip. Yeah. Although that is why this deal with the White Sox to get Kopech has turned out to be a hell of an acquisition, just like the acquisition of Tommy Edman. Those two guys are the reason the Dodgers are in first place. I mean, I grant you, Ohtani's had a superstar season, but had it not been for all the home runs Tommy Edman's has hit since he got here from St. Louis, had it not been for Kopech, when 3 weeks ago they had to put him in the bullpen because the other guys couldn't get the job done. So those guys have had a direct impact as to why they're still in first place.
Yeah, maybe Friedman needs to be the executive of the year. Edmund has always been a great player when he was a St. Louis. Of course, he's a San Diego kid, and the way he just moved from center field to shortstop, and
No big deal.
No big deal. He's making the plays. Kopech is an interesting character. You see that dude out there, and he's got his man bun in the back. He's got that tat on the back of his neck. He's got the crazy beard, but dude throws the heat. I mean, really, and it's amazing how good he is. And because he was sort of hidden with the White Sox.
Well, he was a former starter who would give you innings and they break down. And the ZRA was like 5.84. But they moved him into the bullpen where you limit how many pitches he throws, and this is your responsibility. Now, the key component going to postseason for Dave Robertson, Mark Pryor, don't overuse him. Now, he will pitch back-to-back nights because that's his DNA. He's not Josh Hader. But you can't expect him to go out and throw 24 fastballs one night, come back the next night and throw 24 more. So they're going to have to be selective how many times to go to Kopech.
Well, it's a good thing Schilt's not the manager of the Dodgers. He'd be pulling them out every game. Okay, let's move on here to Gary. And he goes, I'm not worried about the Padres on the road. Aren't we second best on the road this year?
Damn right. And because the Dodgers are second best home field advantage. No, the Padres are not intimidated. And John and I kind of talked about this early in the week on the Monday podcast. I don't think I'd want to play the Padres right now in postseason. I mean, the Padres are the hottest team. I think their record since the All-Star break now is 41-19. 41-19. And they got 4 frontline starting pitchers. They got 7 deep in the bullpen. Suarez is a little shaky right now. And they got every guy in the batting order and coming off the bench. Any of those guys can beat you. It's just not Machado and El Nino hitting home runs, but it's what's gone on other places. The kid, Jackson Merrill, Profar, Arise. And by the way, I got Peralta and Solano coming off my bench, and Higgy has won a bunch of games for us hitting the ball too. There's so many components that any of those guys can win you games. And you combine that with good pitching, I hope we're still playing in late October.
Yeah, but, a 3-game series in the first round, I think can go sideways. But, speaking of that.
Not at Petco Park.
Well, imagine now, let's imagine a scenario here. Let's say the Padres do really well, sweep the Diamondbacks. Let's say the Diamondbacks don't make it, and it's Atlanta or the Mets in the number 5 seed. So the Padres would play Atlanta or New York. Those guys' bullpens could be blown up by that doubleheader after the hurricane.
Oh, I can go. The Mets are in a terrible situation because they're playing in Milwaukee, got to get on the plane, come back and play a doubleheader Monday in Atlanta, and that'll be the death knell for somebody. Mm-hmm. And whoever survives that has to get on a plane and either go to Philly or not go to Philly, get on a plane and come to San Diego.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough assignment.
Ooh, it's rugged. Don't you love postseason?
Oh, yeah, it's going to be great. Okay, here we go. Let's get Johnny involved. He says, hey, don't backpedal now, both of you, talking crap about their patched up rotation and their bad bullpen.
Oh, he must be making reference to Dodger Blue.
Yeah.
They're in first place because of the trades they made at the deadline. They're in first place because of Ohtani giving you a once-in-a-lifetime season that we'll probably never, ever see again. There's nothing wrong with the Dodgers, but Johnny Cage, I just have to ask you, who are you going to trust and give the ball to after Jack Flaherty pitches in your first playoff game? Because after that, asking for volunteers. You got any eligibility left?
I know, really. I got a crafty, knuckleball I can throw. I'm curious about Freddie Freeman. What's the status on his injury?
Well, he was in a walking boot after the game. There's minor ankle injury. It's not major. He's not going to play this weekend in Colorado. So that, and he's going to be off that whole first round. Mm-hmm. So he'll have a good week to rehab it. But the fact he was walking out of the clubhouse in a walking boot without a limp means good.
Well, he twisted that ankle when you saw on the slow-mo. So maybe his ankle sprain is a little bit like Justin Herbert's.
Herbert's is a high ankle sprain, and that's a lot tougher to handle.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. And the fact that Herbert's re-aggravated it already.
Mm.
Thank you for the call. Johnny, next time, just get back to us in the fans forum chat box, and please tell me who you're giving the ball to for game 2 of any Dodger playoff game. Next one.
Okay, let's go to Gary. And he goes, any reference to the late, great Marty Schottenheimer is a great show.
Great coach, intellectual, tough guy. Unfortunately, really bad in postseason. I think his career record in the playoffs was 5-9.
Oof.
He's got 200 career wins. I think based on what he did in Cleveland and what he did, obviously, in the rebuilding of the Kansas City franchise and what he did with the Chargers, though they never got to the Super Bowl, I think he's a Hall of Fame guy. But the fact he was 5-9 in postseason, historically, they just never played well at the end of the season because he was so structured. This is what we do. This is how we got there. You compare Marty Ball to Andy Reid. Andy Reid gets to the playoffs, and they come to the line of scrimmage, and you'll see things formation-wise you never saw with Kansas City during this. Never. And I don't care whether that's motion packages or rollouts. They'll hit you with stuff that you probably never practiced on. Whereas Marty, these are the X's, these are the O's, these are the ABCs of what we're done, and we're going to run it. Well, in postseason, you got to counteract what the other guy's doing, the other guy more creative than you. But Marty is great, man. I was so saddened when he left football, he got screwed by A.J. Smith in San Diego. He left football and he kind of disappeared. And then we found out that he had dementia right at the end, and he went really, really quickly. But he was a good man, good football man.
He was cursed by a lot of bad luck. I mean, that Marlon McCree interception, and he fumbled it, and then Brady came back to win the game. That was when the Chargers were 14-2. In Cleveland, the drive with Elway
and the fumble.
You know, a lot of things that were outside of his control that went bad for him. You kind of feel bad. But yeah, he was a great coach. And when he was here in San Diego, we felt like we had a really strong leader, and you had great trust in what he was doing. The players really rallied for him.
I mean, I almost fell off the chair when I found out they were hiring him because he was the enemy.
That's right, in Kansas City.
Jeez, he was the enemy. He used to incite everybody. I mean, it's funny you bring Marty Ball up. I went back. I was doing some research on something on the Chargers and the year we went to the Super Bowl. This is the 30th anniversary, 1995. We played in Kansas City. That was the feud game between Bobby Ross and Marty Schottenheimer. It was 80,000 plus in that stadium.
Oh my God.
And Schottenheimer, I mean, he stood up for his guys, and even when they cheap shotted Stan Humphries, the quarterback. And I'll never forget, Marty threw his headset down. They had thrown a penalty flag for roughing Stan Humphries. It was a brutal late hit. Derek Thomas, Neil Smith. And Humphries had already been sacked, and they went in and nailed him. And they threw the flag. And Marty threw his headset down, and he walked down that field. He walked as far as almost the hash marks. You can't do that. And I couldn't believe it. And the stadium was just erupting. And all of a sudden, our big right tackle, Stan Brock, who had a brilliant last season for the Chargers in the Super Bowl, he came across the field. And he put a forearm shiver into Schottenheimer, almost knocked Schottenheimer down. And there were more penalty flags. There wound up being offsetting penalties. Nobody came away from that except Humphries got sacked and got shaken up. But that was Marty. I mean, Marty was so damn intense. He was a really fine player back in the day in the old American Football League. He played for the very good Buffalo Bills teams way back in the old AFL. But fine gentleman, stand-up guy, good coach. I enjoyed being around him, even though he was a freaking enemy. And he knew that I knew he was the enemy.
Well, you brought up Derek Thomas. Didn't he have like a tragic death?
Yeah, car accident.
Yeah, and he was like a really good guy
Yeah.
in the community. That was sad. He was an excellent player.
Oh, yeah. And they rebuilt Kansas City. When I first got here as the voice of the Chargers, the Chiefs were like 2-14. They were miserable. And they were the doormat in the AFC. And they brought in an executive from the USFL to be their general manager, Carl Peterson. He hired Marty. Marty had been in Cleveland. They built that thing. They rebuilt that thing so quick. And Marty was winning without star quarterbacks. He didn't have Patrick Mahomes. He had Steve DeBerg, some of these other guys. And
Elvis Gerback.
Yeah, they were winning it, running the damn ball with the Nigerian Nightmare, Christian Okoye.
Oh, yeah. Azusa Pacific.
Yeah, exactly.
But you were in Cleveland when Marty was there, right?
Yes.
I mean, what was he like when he was the Browns coach?
Same thing.
Okay.
He brought law and order. He had been an assistant coach, New England, a bunch of different places. He brought law and order. They did a really good job, but he was haunted by all things Denver Bronco football back then in the AFC. Hey, thanks for being with us, talking old-time football. Next one.
Okay, let's go to Callan. He says, Where, Lee, would you say expectations should be for the Lakers and Clippers this season? I feel like both teams are taking a step back this season.
Well, the Clippers are taking a step back because there is no Paul George, and now they don't have Kawhi Leonard. I mean, if your sales pitching me that you can do really well in the NBA Pacific Division with Zubac and James Harden, no, I don't see that at all. They may struggle to be a 500 team. When they wanted Paul George and he just turned his back and took a huge payday to go to Philadelphia. And according to John Riley, there's no problem with doing it for money all the time, every minute of every day.
That's what he's worth. He should take the money. Yeah.
So I don't think they're going to have a great season. And Harden is not a young guy. Harden's maybe 36. And unless Harden's found the fountain of youth or holy water, I don't know how good Harden's going to be by himself without a superstar, without Kawhi being there. And Kawhi will be, I think he eventually winds up being a part-time player if they can solve the inflammation thing. But you had 4 procedures on that one knee. That's 200,000 miles. I think it's caught up to you. And there's nothing negative about Kawhi. I mean, great player, great person, has made himself into maybe a Hall of Famer. But I think we're looking at the end of the road just because of the physical wear and tear factor. Lakers, unless there's something unique that we're going to get from the number 1 pick, Dalton Connect, if he can be a legitimate 3-point shooter all the time, that's going to help him. And of course, JJ Redick wants to run a lot of packages that equate to threes. So that means Austin Reeves has to hit threes and D'Angelo Russell has to be hot. And if Connect is the real deal, then maybe it's a different basketball team. But we're talking about 80-game schedule, wear and tear, and the history of LeBron getting hurt and AD going down. And then do you survive that time period while those guys are trying to recover? So Lakers are, to me, at best a play-in team. And my co-host says?
I wonder, first of all, Kawhi is a stone-cold lock for the Hall of Fame, in my opinion. But who did the Clippers draft? We talk about the Laker picks, but who did the Clippers take? Or did they even have a first-round pick?
I don't know if they had. I thought they might have traded to the back of the first round, but it doesn't matter. They didn't. They did not get a marquee guy, aka like the big men that went to the top of the draft.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I think it's going to be a struggle to be a 500 team. And now Kawhi's not Kawhi. That to me is a big setback.
That's tough.
Oh. And the Lakers? Are you rooting for play-in? You can't wait for the play-in. Or are you waiting for the NBA Cup in November?
I was raised as a Warrior fan. I used to go to the games at the Oakland Coliseum. It was Rick Barry and Nate Thurmond and Jamal Wilkes back when he was Keith Wilkes. So I love seeing the drama with the Lakers, and I just hope to see more weird stuff happen with them.
You won't get a Christmas card from Jeannie Buss.
No, not at all.
Okay, next question. Thanks, Callum.
A quick comment here from Swellin' Sausage. He says, "Hey guys, I'm listening to you out here on the ranch in Fillmore, Ventura County. Nice to listen to you again."
Very good. Every one of you people, we got 130, I think, on the live stream right now. When we're done, I want you to go on your email or text all your followers, introduce them to this podcast. Tell them that we do this. It's up on the YouTube channel. You can watch it anytime, day or night, sane or sober, doesn't matter. We need you to help us network what we're doing. Like John said, we're pushing almost to 6,000 followers, which is pretty good over about a 15-month window.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Despite our shortcomings, how stupid we look, we've done pretty well. So when we're done with the podcast, just do us that favor. Email everybody or text everybody on your network and say, hey, Hacksaw's back. You ought to check this podcast. It's on a YouTube channel, LeeHacksawHamilton.com. In Ventura County, I hope you continue to be with us Mondays and Thursdays.
Yeah, people listening, following from everywhere. Let's go here to Chris. He says, as of last night, Shohei Ohtani was 11 for his last 12 with runners in scoring position. His unreal play the last month and his joy playing meaningful games is awesome. This could have been you, Mike Trout. Never mind, you were just swept by the worst team in the history of baseball. Stick it, Artie Moreno.
Just bad. And I thought about Trout this morning because the Angels now, I think they're on the brink of finishing a season with 99 losses, which should be all-time worst. Oof. And poor Mike Trout. He did nothing except play hard and then suffer injuries. He's had all these different injuries. He's missed so many games over the course of his career. And he reiterates, I do not want to be traded. I'm loyal to this brand. I don't know where Artie Moreno is going to go to try to rebuild credibility. That to me is a big issue. And their attendance was way down. I mean, like 31% off. And
Oh, yeah.
and that's a good baseball market in a stadium. People like going to an Orange County as a market unto itself, even though there's a lot of Dodger fans in the OC. So Artie Moreno's he's got a lot of work ahead, and the fact that he's committed to keep the general manager there, I just don't know how they're going to fix this thing, Chris.
Did you see the video clip of Shohei Ohtani on deck during the triple play?
Yes.
And he was like licking his chops. I mean, he was ready to win the game, and it just didn't work out. It was more of the storybook ending for that game.
It was amazing because I thought to myself, okay, they get one out. I was shocked they got three. They got one out. And now Suarez has got a pitch to Ohtani. How do you think that's going to work out?
No, not well at all, the way Suarez was pitching. Okay, let's keep moving. Let's go to Angel. And he says, I never thought that the day that the A's leaving Oakland would never come. I'm still hoping for a miracle. Case in point, Giants moving to Tampa Bay before the new owner saved them and stayed in San Francisco.
Well, I'm going to wait to see if they can come up with a financing in Vegas. John Fisher is still having problems, but I think it's going to be a miserable experience. The union kind of did an intervention. They raised hell that you're going to put us in a AAA minor league park in Sacramento. The summers in Sacramento are brutal.
Oh, God.
And you're going to have these guys play outdoor games 3 years in a row in a minor league park. But at the end of the day, the deal got approved by Major League Baseball. I'm so bothered by the leadership in Major League Baseball in terms of stadiums and operations of franchises and the rules with funding of franchises. This should not be allowed, especially when there's a business model out there that we've seen that works. NFL, NBA, NHL. There's got to be a meeting of the minds to help these teams out. And if you got bad ownership, there's no way ownership should be allowed, John Fisher to start, but a bunch of other places, there's no way ownership should be allowed to take revenue sharing funds, take all the TV money, and not invest in talent or players. That spins back to my age-old argument. Got the luxury tax at the top, there has to be a floor to spending. Because if everybody had to spend $120 million, which would be the base bottom, I mean, if the Dodgers and the Yankees want to be 290, if everybody spent 120, that'd mean there'd be money for veteran players to sign free agent contracts for the final couple of years of the contracts and make Oakland better, make Pittsburgh better, make whomever better. And then you also have money you would pour into the farm system. Baseball just is not patrolled the actual operation of the game the way I think they should. I don't know. Am I being Pollyannish? I don't know. You tell me.
Well, the NFL has a great model here, but you can't keep depending on taxpayers to pay for your stadium. So hopefully Major League Baseball will get it organized. I remember the Giants in the 70s almost moved to Toronto. Then they almost, in the late 80s or sometime maybe the early 90s, they almost went to Tampa St. Pete.
And they also, at one time, were looking to go to Minnesota. That's before they wound up going to San Francisco.
Oh, that's when they were in New York.
Yes.
Yeah. But I remember seeing that picture of Brandon Crawford at Candlestick with a sign, don't move, And Jeff Lurie, I think, saved them in the 70s. But as far as Oakland moving, who do you think is a bigger disgrace? Is it Dean Spanos or Jeff Fisher?
John Fisher.
John Fisher, excuse me.
John Fisher's mode of operation has been terrible. Spanos was just unmitigated greed. And there's a lot of that going around in professional sports too. But no, you got the ownership in Oakland, you got the ownership in Miami, you got the small market crisis that went on and on and on, obviously in Tampa. Before that, you had the demise of what I thought was a pretty good regional franchise, the Montreal Expos. But that was a Canadian dollar, American dollar crisis at that point where the Expos, the Bronfman family, which is very famous, decided to sell the team and give up operation of baseball because they just financially just couldn't make it because of the difference in the dollars. And that's how they eventually became the Washington Nationals. They were allowed to move. So, but there should be parameters when you're running a franchise of the revenue streams coming in, what you must spend going out, and the Players Association has input into that. There's a certain percentage in the gross revenue that the Players Association has to get for the players. But baseball just never embraced making the product better. And what makes the NFL great? everybody's playing by the same rules. So that means if you do it right in terms of player personnel, you might have a good football team. And the same things happen in the NBA. And then the same thing, the NHL is so ultra competitive. Baseball's just never embraced it. And it's great to be a Dodger fan and all the history and the legacy of the New York Yankees and all that. But there's a lot of other markets that need guidance or need help or need a structure and have better owners. So that's where we are.
It's a shame because the Bay Area is a big enough economy to support two
Sure.
teams, and it's terrible that it didn't work out. But I love seeing all the A's fans show up. So let's keep going here and talking about A's. Let's go to Jeff. He goes, lots of Oakland A's memories. Man, I feel bad for Oakland. Raiders, Warriors, now the A's.
Well, it's a byproduct of the ownership crisis, at least as it relates to the A's. It's a byproduct of the financial insolvency in the city of Oakland and what Alameda County can and cannot do. I mean, it is tragic that the Raiders left and Golden State moved, although they're downtown and they helped fund that new arena for the Warriors. It's kind of tough to lose all three of your franchises.
Yeah, unbelievable. And just to go a little step further, thinking about memories, Yin said Vita Blue. That was another great name from the Oakland A's back then.
Oh, they had so many personalities. That's the thing.
They did.
I went back into my baseball encyclopedia and I started sifting through decades. And I looked at all the personalities the A's had when they were the swinging A's. Dick Williams, loudmouth, wild ass manager.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got Reggie Barr and you got Joe and you got Sal and you got Raleigh Fingers and you got Catfish and you got Blue Moon. Jeez, there's so many cool players there. And they won 3 championships. It was just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I remember that. I was a little kid. I think it was like 7 years old when they went on that run. And I remember watching one of the World Series games against the Mets. And I remember Willie Mays fell down in the batter's box on a swing. And it was kind of a sad moment.
Mm-hmm. It's just too bad that the city of Oakland lost something that was so special. Because even dating back to the Moneyball era, I mean, they electrified that community during the Billy Beane era. Now, they never got to the World Series. They got close. But it's really tough when you lose your franchise. And this one is so complicated because there's so many people that got blood on their hands for this. Thank you for the input, Yini.
Okay, let's keep moving. We'll go here to Carlos. Padres should just focus on the playoffs. Chargers should sit QV. I'm not sure. Quarterback. Okay. They should get rid of Bosa. He sucks. He's never healthy.
Well, this might be Joey's last year because the salary cap figure is so high and they keep renegotiating the deal and took a pay cut. He's still got a high cap figure for next year. He can't stay on the field. It's not that he's a bum. He's got bad luck. He keeps getting hurt. And he's had all these different injuries. It's not a reoccurrence of the same problem. I would sit Justin Herbert this week. His heart is willing. I don't know where his head is because he sits this week and then he sits the bye week and then he has that week to prepare coming off the bye. I mean, in essence, that's almost 3 weeks to get him totally healthy. And I just don't know that I would play him without either one of my bookend tackles. I mean, losing Rashawn Slater with the pectoral injury and then losing Joe Alt with the sprained knee was kind of a fluke injury right at the end of the game. I don't want my quarterback going out there without his top 2 tackles. And because of other nagging injuries, they're going to have 3 guys starting in different positions that didn't play those positions last Sunday.
Well, then who do you start? Is it Stick or Heineke?
I would go with Heineke. I mean, he's played in tough situations and maybe you have to modify the playbook some, but not a good situation. But I'd rather have Justin Herbert pretty healthy for the final 13 games of the season than risk having him get dinged again without either one of his bookend tackles.
Yeah, wow. It's going to be interesting. And Kansas City's just going to light it up. Let's move on here to Rob. And he says, Deshaun was a good quarterback when he moved around. Now thinks he's a drop back passer for some reason. Noodle arm.
Well, I think it's a big issue. But again, he's coming off rotator cuff surgery. I've watched him briefly. He just didn't look like the same quarterback in terms of rifling the football. At Clemson, he did all this side to side and throw on the move and all that. Houston, he had 2 really good years, but then he got dinged and then obviously he got suspended and he just doesn't look right. And their problems, they got massive left tackle, right tackle problems on top of Sean Watson and not having Nick Chubb, the heavy-duty running back. This whole thing, this Browns football season, looks like it's going to be a disaster because Chubb's not back yet either.
Well, speaking of Browns, here's comment from T. Will. He says, The Browns will forever be the factory of sadness.
Mistake on the Lake Erie. And it's such a great tradition. I mean, the Browns have had great teams for so long. I grew up as a Browns fan. The Jim Brown era, that was really special. And then obviously what they became under Art Modell, and then they left, and then what they became under Marty Schottenheimer. It's too bad. Cleveland is a great football city. Northeast Ohio is a great football region.
Let's keep moving on. A couple of comments here about Reggie Bush. I'm going to throw both of them up. First one is from Rob. They treated Reggie Bush like a pariah because his family accepted a decent place to live. NCAA are hypocrites pretending it isn't a multi-billion-dollar business. And then Michael says, Reggie Bush is an arrogant ass, and I wish Fox Sports would drop him and he would just disappear. He's a disgrace.
Well, there's two ways to look at it. Were the rules archaic? Hell yes. Under the blanket of amateurism, please don't make me throw up. But the second thing is his family took $300,000 worth of stuff. Whether he got a new car out of it, he might have. I've been told the NCAA investigation had all these receipts that he had signed for on somebody else's credit card. It's illegal benefits. The rest of the world, all 133 Division I teams, everybody was just operating under NCAA rules, and Reggie Bush took it upon himself. And then he didn't cooperate, and then he lied, and it's a big issue. And he made a lot of money. He made a ton of money in the NFL. He was a great player. He might be the greatest college running back of all time, but that's all under the cloud cover of who he was. I said on TV, on KUSI, and they kind of went crazy. I said, if he really wants to do something special, he made all this money. USC lost 30 football scholarships. They were stripped. They lost 14 victories. Their national championship was taken away. Give me that Heisman Trophy back, which I thought was unfair because he earned it on the field. He wants to do something legitimate. Make a huge financial donation to USC. He's got a lot of money. Pay the equivalent of 30 football scholarships into USC's NIL fund if you want to fix your image. But now he's suing everybody as if I deserve this from 2005 to 2020 because now the kids in 2024 getting an NIL. That just leaves a really bad taste in my mouth. And he was such a great player.
And now you want Reggie Bush to bend the knee, to sacrifice himself on the top of the altar for USC. That's not going to rebuild his reputation. I don't think so.
Well, the Bush followers will be the Bush fans. I agree. And the ones that don't like him won't like him. I understand that too.
Yeah, he was fantastic at USC. Okay, let's get a couple more folks here involved. And okay, let's go here to Steve. He says, what do you think of the Ducks without Gibson for 4 to 6 weeks and Doughty injured with the Kings? Tell us, Saul.
Well, the Kings have to win. Now, they've got a lot of firepower. They've got a lot of good guys up front. They're a little bit suspect in goal. I don't know if they got the right goaltending or heavy-duty goaltending to carry them, and that's part of your NHL equation. The Ducks, it's just a tough break. John Gibson, I'll never forget, a couple years ago, and he started a lot of games and played great. And there was a game he looked at 30 shots in one period. And they finally pulled him. He almost fainted on the ice. And I felt so bad for him because the whole franchise went through a bad transition from being a Stanley Cup finalist and winning it. And everybody got paid. And then they had salary cap problems. And then all their older players retired, got let go. And they started to rebuild. And he was the only piece of legitimacy they had between the pipes. And he was getting bombarded. And he had no help at all because they're force feeding all their kids. It just hasn't finished up the way we thought it would start. And I like John Gibson. I think he's a warrior. But, I will say this. The young kid goaltender that was here for a year and a half, Lucas Dostal, he's a player. And he had a really good season last year when Gibson got hurt. So Dostal is going to be the starter. But we're still dealing with the same problem in front of him. They have so many kids that they're putting on the ice. And at 19 and 20 and 21, it is tough to play in the NHL. And all their star forwards, all the guys that are going to try to get goals from, they're all in that age bracket. So it's going to be another tough year. I would hope they'd turn the corner, but they haven't turned the corner yet.
Can you imagine being an NHL goalkeeper? I mean, getting shot with bullets every game. I mean, did you play hockey as a kid on Long Island?
Not very well, but yes. I was a defenseman. I didn't play goal.
Okay.
We skated on frozen ponds on Long Island all the time. But those guys are phenomenal athletes, and they're well protected. I mean, they wear so much padding. But the wear and tear factor, when you're looking the kind of shots that Gibson was looking at on a night in, night out basis, like I said, 30 shots in one period.
Oh, yeah.
I broadcast hockey. I never saw that ever.
Well, that's because his defensemen are really holding their weight, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the guys coming back, the forwards weren't playing well. So it was on a bad team. So I hope he gets back healthy. He will after the appendectomy. It's going to take some time. But the Drew Doughty injury to me is a monster setback for Rob Blake's team.
Keep moving. I mean, I'll tell you, Fans Forum is loaded today. All right, let's go here to Jay. Hey, we'll learn where Yamamoto is this weekend. Should get 2 innings of work. Stuff has been there since he came back. Buehler can keep the Dodgers in a game. Yes, a bullpen game.
I guess so. But you're wishing and hoping there's no setbacks, because for every good outing that Yash has had, there's also been kind of a substandard outing. And for every good outing that Buehler's had, there's always men on base, which means you're one hit away from catastrophe. And he's had a couple good games, but there's been no consistency to his game at all. In fact, there's no consistency with Buehler from inning to inning. That's the big issue. Unless you're just going to subscribe to the theory, 11-8 Dodgers, we're not going to worry about it.
Well, as long as Ohtani comes up every couple of innings, I mean, they're going to be able to knock a guy's in. It's going to be fascinating to see what Dave Roberts does. Imagine if Dave Roberts leads this team with the crazy pitching roster into the World Series and actually wins it this time. Do you think Dodger fan would give him a break?
Of course they would. Your memory is very short if you're a Dodger fan. But like I said, his win percentage is .626 and people are still hating on him. You got to be kidding me.
Yeah. That doesn't make any sense.
Okay, couple more here before we go to social media.
Wait, we're just loaded here. Let's go here to John. He says, as much as I'm pulling for the Padres, I hate to say this, but the Phillies are going to be the team to beat.
The only exception to that, John, might be the fact that the Phillies pitching staff, they had some injuries at midseason. Now they got Ranger Suarez back. They look fatigued to me. They don't look quite. I mean, Zach Wheeler and those guys don't look like they did the first half of the season. I mean, I think innings have built up. But that being said, they got Suarez back. They got the young left-hander who's had a really good season. Bullpen is a little shaky. That's why they made so many trades. But they do hit home runs, and they do bang balls out of Citizens Bank Ballpark. Although Schwarber and Harper's home run totals have kind of drifted down, I think they're showing a little bit of fatigue too. But everybody takes a deep breath, and I'll tell you, the week off, the bye week for the Phillies and the Dodgers, that's huge.
Oh, yeah. I mean, before they used to say that we don't want the bye because we lose momentum. You've got to want that bye. But think of the Phillies. I remember seeing Kyle Schwarber was like the leadoff batter.
Still is.
And he hits bombs, but he hits below the Mendoza line.
Yeah, he's 218, but he hits bombs with men on base, and he gets to bat a lot because Harper's there and Castellanos is there. JT Realmuto is there. Alec Boehm is there. They've got a really good batting order. I mean, all the attention goes to the home run guys, but that's a pretty good team. And if this bye week, that's huge, I think, for that starting rotation in Philadelphia.
Why did the Cubs get rid of him?
Which one?
Schwarber.
Deficiency. He kind of plays left field like you would. And you're doing it in softball.
Yeah. Okay.
Jeez, I hope I don't get hit in the head with this ball.
Like Juan Soto.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's get some social media. And Lee, we're going. It's an hour 37 in. So you tell me when it's time to wrap it up. But let's talk a little golf. And this is from Link Belt, talking about the merger of the PGA and LIV. Nobody really cares anymore past the majors and player championships. Golf is dying after Tiger. Everyone knew it was coming.
Well, we had the era of Tiger Phil, which was phenomenal. Prior to that, we had Arnie's Army and the Golden Bear, Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer. We've had these great eras of great players. I don't know that Scotty Scheffler is the marketing guy to be the leader right now of what the Pro Golf Tour is. And all I can base it on is, we do pay attention to the British Open and the Masters and the U.S. Open, etc. But all I can base it on is the TV ratings for both LIV and PGA have dropped drastically. LIV, nobody attends their tournaments. I mean, they got a whole bunch of tournaments here in the States. Do you know where they're playing, when they're playing, who they're
No
playing?
idea. No
And you
idea.
know where to find it on the bloody TV? No.
Not at all.
So nobody's paying attention. And I told John the story. It was a couple weeks ago. I watched the final round of an LIV tournament, and they got to the 18th hole on the final Sunday, and there were like 32 people around the green. 32. And this is supposed to be mega tournament, mega winner money. Nobody is. Are we looking for the next set of stars on the PGA? Well, Scheffler's arrived. Xander Schauffele's arrived. Maybe Patrick Cantlay. But it's just, we just don't have the consortium of great players paired together. It's a big issue. And as Rory McIlroy said last week, and McIlroy is an established star too, we don't want to let the LIV come back scot-free. Look what they did to our tour. And they took all that money to go over there and take that blood money. He said, we're not letting them back in. And McIlroy said, if we put this up to a vote, a merger, 65% of the guys on this side would vote no, because they want those guys who took the money and left and kind of crippled the PGA Tour to pay a penalty to get back in.
That's weak. You need to get everyone back together. If they had everyone back together, both leagues merged on a good TV package, golf would be big again.
It'd bounce back.
It wouldn't be as big as the Tiger years, but it would still be big. Yeah, so let's keep moving. Okay, let's go here, talk a little bit about the Rams and some other NFL teams. This is from Conrad. He says, Rams beat the 49ers. Let's go. Chargers brought back to earth after playing a real team. Rams showed grit.
Tell you, Matthew Stafford is willing the Rams to victory. Now, they got to keep him upright, and he's doing it behind a real patchwork quilt offensive line, and he's doing it without Cooper Kupp and without Nakua. I mean, what he's accomplished is absolutely amazing, but you can only expose him so much, and you're going to take a hit, and he's going to go down, and then he's going to get hurt. So this has just been a really rugged start. Now, they beat San Francisco, big accomplishment, but that's Frisco without Christian McCaffrey, and that's Frisco without Deebo Samuel, and Frisco without George Kittle, and Frisco with negligible contribution from the guy that he thought should be paid all the money in the world in Brandon Ayuk. So we haven't seen San Francisco at its peak. And I think Frisco, when they get everybody back, although McCaffrey's got this Achilles injury, and he went to Germany to see specialists who treat Achilles injuries with plasma platelet injections. So he was allowed by the 49ers to go take part in this. But it might be a couple weeks before we see McCaffrey back. But Frisco's still got a lot of good football to be played in them, and there's still 14 more weeks to go.
McCaffrey going to Germany reminds me of Kobe Bryant. Didn't he do something similar?
Mm-hmm. A lot of people have. Tennis players have.
Really?
Yeah. There's some type of creative, what's the word I'm looking for? Creative medicine that is being used at special clinics that treat muscular disorders. And that's what McCaffrey's got, as an Achilles heel calf issue.
Interesting.
So, but I was told he was given a plasma platelet injection and a stem cell injection while he was there for much of this past week. And I think he's back in San Francisco today. Now, he's not going to be ready to play for a couple of weeks. I think it takes at least a good 2 weeks to get those steroids or the plasma platelet into your system. But it's worked for a lot of other guys, so that's why he did it.
Got room for a few more?
Two more.
Okay, let's go here. Somebody's calling you out here on this one, Lee. This goes to Kareem Bear. He says, laugh out loud, back away from this, Lee. Give us some real evidence, or don't do drive-bys. Pitching 90 to 100 miles an hour is an inherently unnatural and dangerous activity for your arm and shoulder. If you tell me the Dodgers are specifically doing something different to cause this, I'll listen. Should they review their practices? Sure, but stop with the lazy analysis and promoting it on your Instagram.
Oh, please. I'm just giving you the facts. We put up that board of everybody who had injuries, and how many of those are elbow and forearm injuries. And it's a direct result of max effort searching for velocity. They want everybody to throw 100 miles an hour. Baseball does. That's why there have been so many pitchers who have had the elbow and Tommy John surgery. What you need to do is evaluate which pitch is causing the most damage. And maybe you need to teach a different pitch so you're not asking these guys to hold the ball in this unique grip that's causing all these ruptures of tendons and ligaments in the elbow or the forearm tears. It's happening across baseball. Dodgers have an exceptional number of pitchers who've gone down. So I'm not throwing stuff up against the wall and saying, look at that. This is reality. This is what's happened. But there's also a mindset, because we had the quote from Walker Buehler. I'm a max effort pitcher. I've been taught to do this. I do this, we win. I do this, we win. I get a contract. If I break down, I'm a major league pitcher. I accept it.
You know what's interesting is pitchers usually when they throw, it's a very fluid motion with the wrist. But I have noticed that Dylan Cease and Joe Musgrove, when they throw, you can see that the wrist is kind of cut in a little bit, and it's a different motion. So I think, like you said, it's the sweeper and some of these new pitches.
It's the wickedness of the movement of the ball, because there's more power behind the ball when you're holding the ball this way. There's more stress. Just hold your hand, squeeze your fingers together like that, and then do this motion. You feel it down here.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Sure. John won't be with us on Monday. John's going on injured reserve disabled list because he just tore a ligament in his elbow.
Okay, let's keep going here. Let's just talk a little bit about the Dodgers and Dave Roberts. This is from Stumper. The big question is, who's going to be the better manager in the playoffs? Roberts has been horrible in the postseason. Padres might have the edge.
I think definitely. I mentioned to John at the beginning of this podcast, the Dodgers, they're kind of passive. They don't play small ball. They don't move guys up. They don't do hit and runs. They just kind of, if guy gets on, fine. If we hit a home run, okay, that's how we score. Whereas the Padres, they do a lot of creative stuff. I mean, they steal bases. They lay bunts down. That's kind of old school baseball, but I think Schilt is better in-game manager than Dave Roberts is. Roberts, I think, has the complexity that there's a memo that comes down from upstairs in the analytics that we think you need to do this. If we have to go to the bullpen in the fourth inning, fifth inning, this is who we want up. This is what we think the batting order should be, certain situations. So has to accede to the analytical guys about matchups and what they think would work. Now, they have won 100 games for a lot of years, and obviously this season they're getting close to 100 wins. So I can't argue with either side, but I think Schilt's style of ball is a little bit different than Dodger baseball. Give me your thought.
Oh, I agree. I think that you'll see the hit and run, you'll see the bunt a lot more with the Padres. But Ohtani runs. I mean, you got over 50 steals. Do you think Ohtani is maybe benefiting from the fact of the 3 pickoff rule and the bigger bases and all that?
He's benefiting because I think he's become an addicted student of the game. He never stole more than 19 bases, I think, up till this year. But he has studied. I mean, he's like this all the time on the computer, looking at video of pitchers' moves and how to get jumps. And they've also taught him to be a longer strider running the bases. I mean, he gets jumps and he's got explosiveness coming out of his stance to steal a base. It's just fascinating to watch him. And I've never watched him real close up when he's at home plate. You look at his wrist action. He is so quick with his wrists, and there's such power behind his swing. That's why there's 448-foot home runs out there. I think he's a phenomenal student of the game.
It's just a really interesting guy on so many different levels,
Yeah.
Isn't it? I mean, like you say, he's a student of the game, but he's also has this sort of schoolboy charm, and the smile and the way he kind of moves his hands when they get to second base, So I just think he's a fascinating player to watch for all the reasons that the media talks about, plus a lot, like you say, a lot of these secret little things that we don't see.
Yeah. This is a once-in-a-lifetime player. I don't think we'll ever see this again. Baseball hasn't seen this since the 1920s. Babe Ruth. And that was a lot of fastballs and curveballs and home runs ago.
Well, how good of a pitcher was Babe Ruth?
Well, based on what I've read, he was really good. He was a dominant pitcher, but they wanted him to play every day, and he rebuilt the game. He became a power guy. In the game during the Depression, this goes way back before me. I've just read this from all the books in my library. Baseball was in big trouble because of the Depression. Nobody had any money. Players weren't making any money. There's no jobs. And he reinvented baseball, becoming a great home run hitter. Murderers Row and the Bronx Bombers and Ruth and Gehrig and all those guys. They changed the game. And because he was a man before his time, he was much bigger than anybody else. And he had an unbelievable stroke. And you hit all the home runs he hit. It was just phenomenal. what, 700, whatever it was.
714.
14. Yeah.
Because Aaron had 715. I just like looking back at those old videos, and you look kind of parallel at history in the roaring 20s, right? There was lots of money, people flapper hairdos, they're going out boozing, having a good time. And then, the stock market crashed in 29. They went into the depression, but the murderer's row I always associate with 1927. But how long did Ruth play? Maybe to 34, 35?
Yeah, and he had a lot of miles on him, and he was not a good liver. I mean, he lived hard. He enjoyed life. So his
Mickey Mantle.
Yeah, his game kind of went away from him, and then so he retired. Then he wanted to be a manager. And because he wasn't dedicated to the craft, he only got hired, I think, by the Boston Braves as a coach, and it turned out to be a disaster. And then he retired, and then he died very young. He died of cancer in 1947.
Unbelievable. Remember the movie The Natural?
Sure.
They had a fictional character that was like a Babe Ruth.
Call him the Whopper, I think.
Yeah, exactly. That was pretty cool.
Yep. Interesting. We will end on that. We hope you have enjoyed this extended, because I couldn't get him to shut up, this extended Friday bonus podcast. Now, we'll be back Monday, our regular Monday schedule. We launch at 1 p.m. Pacific. Do me a couple of favors. Do us a couple of favors. When we're done, go on social media or email your friends. Just introduce our podcast on the YouTube channel, Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. At the same time, I want you to check my website. Just go on it, sample what I write every day, and know it's going to be there at the breakfast table on your cell phone or in your computer every morning. Do that. Tell your friends, subscribe, share, and thanks for being part of what we've done. This podcast brought to you today by Dixieline Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you. John, final weekend of the baseball season, a lot of important games still to be played. And by the time we join you Monday, we'll be talking about playoff matchups, and we'll be talking about the NFL. Have a great sports weekend.
Yeah. You're the James Brown of sports journalists.
And thank you for being with us. Great to have you as part of this. Make sure you tell your friends to subscribe as we try to push to 6,000 followers here.